In moments, we're going to have more on that deadly shooting in Uvalde and how you can protect your family in these increasingly dangerous times. But first, I want to turn quickly to Washington, D.C., where Congress wants $22 billion more for COVID relief. But we're learning tonight that millions have already been wasted from that original $1.9 trillion package, like $500,000 for programs on racial justice at the University of Montana, $50K to teach indigenous canoe building, nearly $472,000 for an exhibit on ancient Egypt in Pittsburgh. What? Joining us now to talk about this, sad but not sad, it's infuriating, Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, what the heck? I mean, this kind of small change compared to almost $2 trillion. But what does it tell us about this?
Well, Laura, this kind of waste wasn't predictable. It was predicted at the time. We said when the Democrats tried to shovel $2 trillion out the door immediately without proper oversight and adequate controls, that it would go to fund these kind of irrelevant and frankly trivial priorities of the Democratic Party, that it wouldn't go to help coronavirus relief. It's just an example of how reckless the Democrats have been over the last year and a half with their tax dollars. They wasted all this money on those initiatives you just talked about, and that just scratched the surface. They stuck you with a $2 trillion tax bill, and on top of it all, it's that bill that caused the inflation that we have right now. I mean, they even gave stimulus checks to the Boston Marathon bomber and other hardened criminals. That's how ideologically devoted they were to spending trillions of dollars last year. That's why we don't need any more of this spending, and we don't need any more Democrats in control in Washington.
Well, Senator, I think we saw a lot of Republicans who voted for that so-called infrastructure bill, which was more money spent by Washington that we either have to borrow or print. And when we borrow from countries like China, we end up funding the war that Russia is waging on Ukraine because China is helping Russia. So the whole thing is a twisted deal when we spend money that we don't have. All of it.
Yeah, and Laura, thankfully, we right now stopped the Democrats from spending another $5 trillion on the coronavirus. Now, they claim that they're still working on it. They still want to try to pare it back. Maybe they can get to 50 votes in the Senate. But hopefully we can get to the end of this year, at least through the election, and make sure that they're not wasting more of your tax dollars on things like racial diversity, equity, and inclusion programs or indigenous canoe building programs. None of these had anything to do with the coronavirus pandemic that we faced 2 years ago at the height of the uncertainty and the challenges and lockdowns. This was coming out of the coronavirus pandemic. This was about the Democrats funding their pet projects.
No, I just think until Republicans, we hope, take back the Senate and the House, I think this spending has to end. We're out of dough, and it's hurting our country at this point. Senator, thank you for standing firm.